Hi, welcome
Hi,
back
welcome
to
back,
more.
or welcome.
Welcome for first time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Welcome to Hex and Boo and Scary Stories. I'm Vati.
I'm Minx.
We're gonna read you some scary stories. I think Minx, you're gonna go first this time.
I think I am. Yes,
Okay.
I have two by the same author. She was incredibly sweet when I spoke to her, and I started getting more like into her work after the first one, and I found the second one, and I was like, I can't not read it. So I'm gonna start with the first one, and the author is Helena Castellan, and I found her on the No Sleep subreddit. That's kind of where I've been getting a lot of my stories, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But this first story I found was, have you ever heard about competitive stalking? And I kind of, it's a little interesting. I like it. I got a lot of enjoyment from it. So, anyways, if you're ready,
I am ready.
all right, get your popcorn, get your snacks, settle in. If you ever get a stalker, I pray that you get a stupid one. One that's messy, forgetful, that doesn't think about the consequences of their actions. One that leaves fingerprints where they shouldn't, that slips up, that rushes. I hope you don't get one that's meticulous, patient, smart. If you ever have such a stalker, you can go years without noticing them. Years of your life filed away in someone else's memory. Maybe you've already been stalked and you don't know. Maybe that tight feeling in your chest has a reason. Do me a favor. Check your house for small spaces, places where someone might hide. Check your food. Take pictures of your things before leaving, and compare the pictures with how they look when you get back. Look behind you at all times, or around you. Close your blinds. And no matter what you do, don't ever be alone. I don't think I was the type of person to be stalked. I'm not some popular, pretty, extroverted girl that everyone seems to gravitate towards. My best friend is my mom. I'm average in terms of looks and not very smart or charismatic. Genuinely, there's nothing interesting about my life. I mean, I deal drugs from time to time. Apart from that, that's quite boring too. But that's how I came to know about my stalker. Stalkers? About competitive stalking in general. Part of my work is face to face, but some murders take place online. For that, I go to the dark web. I won't go into too many details of how exactly I operate. I assume you understand why. But I'll say that I limit myself to what I need to do, and I'm never curious. I occasionally come across hitman ads, forums of pictures of sleeping people, but nothing too crazy. Competitive stalking. That was the purpose of the community I accidentally discovered. I won't say the exact name of the community or provide any way to gain access, but I don't want to contribute to its popularity. I basically came across threads and discussions where people were bragging about their conquests. One of them wrote, I'm a woman and I love stalking men. It's just something that gives me power, I think. I'm currently narrowed it down to these two, and there's some attachments. I can't decide. It's like they're competing for my attention. No one ever suspects that it might actually be a woman who's after a man, not the other way. And that gets me so hot. Another writes, no way. You're stalking redacted too? It's been I've been on to him since he was 22. He's so hot and his life got infinitely better since I came. I suggest you leave him alone and turn to your other playboy. Do you even know anything about him? I know how long he showers. I know what he gets off to. How much money he has in his bank account. I know his medical history and favorite shows. They go back and forth. Please. The other day I was in his house. I watched him eat dinner. Another one says, I know. I saw you. She responds, where? Where were you? Yeah, as if I'm gonna say. There were dozens of threads like that. exchanges between people stalking the same person or just posts looking for validation and comments going like, congrats, good job. I saw pictures of people in their own homes, naked, sleeping, even selfies sometimes. Pictures that looked like they'd been taken from a crawl space or a closet or through peepholes. I saw some really perverted stuff too, but I won't go into details. Another one wrote, I'm in love with her. I even look after her kids, watch them at school. Sometimes I talk to them. I ask a lot of questions about mommy. Do you know how easy it is for me to just take one? That person was 100% anonymous and didn't offer any identifying details about the victim either. I kept scrolling, unable to look away. The same morbid curiosity as when you're looking at a car accident. Last night she made the best chili. Here's a picture of her. Isn't that neat? I talk to her all the time. She has no idea it's me. It's not like she's too clean herself, you know? It's always the ones you least expect. She's this washed out junior in college who doesn't talk to anyone ever, and yet she deals. It's so funny to see. Wait a minute, what? I watch her from her window all the time. It's funny when she cries herself to sleep. I managed to get in once, but I had to jump out the window because she came home. Wait, are you talking about redacted? That was my full government name. Somebody responded, yeah, why? I'm in her house right now. I can't begin to describe how I felt in that moment. I pray you never get to experience this. For a full minute, I didn't think at all. I just stared at the message until I brought myself to read the date. It was dated 3 days ago. Where had I been? I'd been home. Maybe they left. No one can stay in a crawl space for 3 days. Hell, I didn't even know that I had a crawl space. I shot up from my bed and started pacing around the house, pulling furniture out and checking everything frantically. I finally took a good look inside my fridge, and it might have been the paranoia, but I swear it looked like someone had quietly lifted the lids of my stuff and taken an almost unnoticeable amount out. I couldn't find a crawl space. I went back to reading. Cool, how'd you get in? I'm not telling you that. Maybe in time you'll become a professional like me. I go out all the time and stare at her while she's sleeping. I don't believe you. I was skimming through the messages while dialing my mom. She picked up pretty quickly. Are you okay, sweetie? Mom, I think someone is stalking me. I came across a website and there's some stalkers talking about me. There's a pause. What? And then a response. I'm so good at what I'm doing that I hacked her phone and laptop. I can see your screens. Get in line. I froze, phone in hand. I swore I heard a faint scratch coming from the living room, slow and careful, like nails testing wood. Get out. Talk later. As I was putting on my jacket, I glanced at the monitor one last time. My mom was panicking on the other end, asking me all kinds of questions that I didn't know the answer to. One last message caught my attention. I don't care. You're just an observer, a watcher. I'm a player. I actually came into contact with her. I've been talking to her on the phone for months, and she thinks it's her mother. The end. I was not expecting that at the end.
Oh God, yeah, I hated
I was
that.
I was not expecting the bit at the end where,
I'm your mom.
where
Ugh.
the comments were just like, "Yep, she thinks I'm her mother." That I was so shocked,
Ugh.
but like I enjoyed it too a little bit. Like it had me have like I have goosebumps.
It's good, but it's so close to like
Hmm.
something that could actually happen.
I
Ugh.
know. I think that's what makes it like scarier for me too. Like I
Yeah,
get a
that's
little
fair.
like my heart's racing a little bit, but yeah, it's
Mhm.
just very
You never
intense.
know.
But I do really really like the author.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Ugh, it was creepy for sure. All right. You want to shout out the author again?
Yes, her name is Helena Castellan. I'm gonna have all of her links below. I know she also runs a Patreon as well. It looked really, really interesting, and everyone should definitely go take a look.
All right. I think it's my turn then, huh?
It is, it is.
All right. So my story I also found on the No Sleep Reddit. It's somebody that's reached out to me a couple times. So shout out to you. So this is a fever dream. It's actually spelled Fvrdreem, and we will have their links in the show notes. They're really cool. They do a lot of body horror stuff. This one's a little less gross, if I say so myself. But yeah, so it's called Everyone Else Remembers the House Differently. So make sure you go check them out. I think they're kind of new to Reddit. They didn't have a lot of stories, but they have some really good stuff. So, all right.
Alright.
All right. Everyone remembers the house differently. I didn't think the house was strange at first. That's the part that bothers me now. When my wife, Erin, first suggested we move, I assumed she meant closer to her job or to a better school district. Instead, she sent me a listing with three blurry photos and a price that made my stomach tighten. Something's wrong with this, I said. Erin smiled. It's just old. The house sat at the end of a gravel road that didn't appear on Google Maps. Not missing, just unnamed. No street sign, no address marker. The GPS stopped guiding us about a quarter mile out and calmly announced we have arrived, even though we were still driving. The house waited at the tree line, paint the color of old teeth, windows dark but unbroken. It didn't look abandoned, it looked paused. The realtor didn't come inside with us. I'll wait out here, she said too quickly. Yell if you need me. Inside, everything smelled faintly of dust and cold iron. The layout made sense room to room, but the proportions felt wrong. Hallways a little too long, ceilings a little too high. The kind of place where your footsteps echo back half a second late. Aaron loved it immediately. I noticed the door frames. Every doorway had a shallow grooves carved into the wood, about shoulder height. Not scratches, intentional marks, evenly spaced, like someone had dragged something heavy through again and again. What's that? I asked. Aaron frowned. What? The wood. She looked directly at the grooves. That's just wear. We bought the house 2 weeks later. The first night, I dreamed I was standing in the hallway outside our bedroom. I could hear breathing around me. When I turned around, the hallway was longer than it should have been. The wall stretched away, bending slightly inward like ribs. The breathing grew louder, wet and uneven. But no matter how far I walked, I never reached the end. I woke up with my heart racing. Erin slept peacefully beside me. Over breakfast, I mentioned the dream. That's weird, she said. I dreamed I was walking towards our room. I could see the light under the door, but I couldn't get closer. We laughed it off. That was the last time we laughed about it. Things changed slowly, which is why I didn't leave. The house began to feel observant. Not haunted, not alive, just aware. Doors stayed where we'd left them, but sometimes they felt heavier to open, like pushing against pressure. The mirrors reflected us like accurately, but occasionally I'd catch Erin staring at her reflection with confusion, like she was checking to make sure it still matched. Then came the discrepancies. One afternoon, Erin asked me why I'd painted the spare room. I didn't, I said. She frowned. You did. It used to be green. It had never been green. I knew that. I remembered the beige walls clearly. But when I went to look, the room was pale green. That night, I found an old photo in my phone. Moving day. Spare room. Green walls. My stomach dropped. Memory errors happen, I told myself. Stress, adjustment. Then Erin forgot the pantry door existed. She stood in the kitchen one evening, frustrated, opening cabinets. Where did we put the food? She asked. In the pantry? I said, pointing. She stared at the door like it offended her. That's a broom closet. It wasn't. I opened it. Shelves, cans, rice, everything normal. She screamed. After that, the house stopped pretending. I started finding spaces that didn't exist before, short hallways branching off familiar rooms. The doors were, they had been a blank wall. They always led somewhere almost familiar. A room that looked like our bedroom, but wrong. A bathroom with a mirror that reflected the room behind me incorrectly. The grooves in the door frames deepened. I measured them. Each was exactly the width of a human shoulder. Aaron stopped noticing the changes entirely. She insisted the house had always been this way. When I begged her to leave, she looked at me with pity. This is our home, she said. Why are you acting like a guest? That night, I heard footsteps pacing the hallway for hours. When I opened the door, the hallway was short again, empty, but the grooves on the frame were deeper. I finally spoke to the realtor. Her face went pale when I mentioned the address. You're not supposed to stay long, she whispered. People usually don't. What happened? I demanded. She shook her head. Everyone remembers it differently. That's how it keeps you arguing, comparing notes, doubting yourselves. Keeps us from what? She looked at me then, eyes wet, from noticing who's missing. I started keeping a journal. Every morning I wrote down the layout of the house, every door, every hallway, every room. By evening, the journal was wrong. Sometimes the handwriting wasn't mine. I found entries describing rooms I'd never seen, written in a style but unfamiliar phrasings. It's easier if you stop counting. A house needs consistency. Someone has to fit. Erin stopped sleeping in the bedroom. She said it didn't feel like ours anymore. She started using a room at the end of the hallway I could never quite remember walking down. One night, I followed her. The hallway stretched. The air grew cold. At the end was a door frame with grooves, worn smooth, like they'd been touched thousands of times. The room beyond the wall The room beyond was small. No windows, no furniture. Just Erin standing in the center. She smiled when she saw me. I remember now. Remember what? I whispered. She placed her shoulders against the grooves. They fit her perfectly. The house doesn't change, she says gently. We do. The wall shifted. The hallway shortened behind me. The doorframe pressed inward. Erin screamed, not in fear, but in relief, as the grooves swallowed her shape, the wood bending, reshaping, sealing. When it was over, the hallway was normal again. The spare room was beige. The house was quiet. I tried to leave. The roads didn't connect to anything anymore. The GPS insisted I was home. The journal now contains only one sentence, written over and over in different handwriting. Everyone else remembers the house differently. This morning, I noticed new grooves in the bedroom doorframe. They're my height. They're getting deeper. If you're reading this and you're thinking of buying a cheap old house that just feels right, please take pictures, write things down. And if someone you love starts remembering things differently than you do, leave. Ian.
Oh, the part about the handwriting not being his was so scary.
He's like, I definitely wrote this, but I didn't write this.
Oh my god, and then at the end, them all just having written the same sentence. Oh, I hate that. I love it, but I hate it. Oh, that was
Yes.
good though.
Yes, that was one of their a little bit more not body horror ones. But if you're
Mhm.
super into that kind of stuff, I would highly recommend them. I probably won't be reading any of those on here because they're really gross. But we'll definitely keep up with this author. So make sure you go follow them on Reddit. And we will have their links in the show notes.
I think I would have packed it up and left. Like, I would have left so quickly.
I
I'm
would have
not
said
gonna
no at the
lie.
three horrific pictures. I'd been like,
I know.
girl, how many bathrooms does it have? Like,
We can find something else.
I don't know. Housing's pretty bad nowadays.
True.
Have you seen
I
the
still
price of
think
rent?
I still think we could find something else.
But they allow pets. No.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yeah. I have another one by the same author, Helena Castellan. This one is the people upstairs won't stop singing happy birthday. It's been 5 hours.
Oh God, that's a
Mm-hmm.
nightmare. Just that sentence is a nightmare.
I
Imagine being
know.
stuck as the birthday person. They just keep singing happy birthday to you.
That's what
That's
drew,
a
like,
nightmare.
not gonna lie. That caught my ex. I was like, why the fuck?
All right, all
I
right.
immediately was like, I have to know how this goes down.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I don't usually work on Sundays, but I needed some extra cash, so I took an early shift. I came home around 2 p.m. I live in this apartment building. My apartment is on the first floor, along with another one that belongs to this dude who's rarely home. There's Miss Rogue's place on the ground floor, And then the second floor has two other flats, one owned by an elderly couple and the other by this family. I don't really see that too like that often. Directly above me, sometimes I hear the kids in the morning moaning about having to get ready for school and then stomping down the stairs. Sometimes I hear hushed voices and dishes clattering. After 10 p.m., everything usually goes quiet. I got to my door and I was searching for my keys in my bag. I could hear voices upstairs. They were hushed and a little tense, stressing the words and mixing them together. I couldn't really make out what they were saying, but they seemed to be talking about something really important. Now, keep in mind that I've never seen these people before. I assumed they were a family because I kept hearing the kids and sounds that generally attribute to a family home. It's not like I've personally met them, I just assumed. Anyways, as I said, I finally got a hold of my keys and unlocked the door. Yet I didn't immediately step inside after I opened it. I don't know why. I let it swing open and remained there listening for 2 more seconds. But I'm somewhat glad I did. The moment the door was heard, the voices upstairs stopped completely, as if they were listening to me now. I remained still, and we all studied the silence for a while. I heard a singular step on the stairs above, and that's when my back went cold and my muscles tensed up. For whatever reason, I got the sudden urge to just go inside and shut the door behind me, which I did. Afterwards, I started putting some groceries in the fridge and doing some errands around the house. Faintly at first, then stronger, I started hearing this birthday song upstairs. I smiled and sighed. They were planning the birthday. Man, that's why they were so precautious, so nervous. It sounded like there was around 5 or 6 people singing, maybe. Happy birthday, dear Jonah. That was cute. When they finished, they started again. I did find it weird, but I assumed that the kid had asked for it again. Kids love blowing out candles and whatever. It was an awfully long song. It kept looping until reaching its conclusion, just like the first time. It had a lot of unnecessary runs and filler and extra lyrics. When they finished, a little pause followed. Then they started again, in the exact same way. Fucking weird family, I thought, and by that time I'd gotten annoyed. So I just put on my headphones and laid down on the couch. I fell asleep around 4 or 5 p.m. I woke up from the nap disoriented. Man, after work naps hit the hardest. I'd slept until around 8 p.m., and the sun was peeking at me from behind some buildings. A sunset that was more blue than red, a melancholy and confusion that reminded me of how liminal your house felt when you would go to sleep after school and wake up with a sore throat and a huge pillow mark on your face, with your mood ruined and your mother suddenly calling out to go to dinner. I swallowed, staring blankly at the window, highlighted in gold and rum. I rubbed my eyes, then massaged my face. I stood up to get a glass of water, walked barefoot to the kitchen with my now sunken in specific 8 p.m. darkness, and stood still and silent, not knowing what I wanted from my life. Then I finally registered one important detail. The folks upstairs were still singing Happy Birthday. I listened for a while, unsure that my reaction should be. I wondered if they'd had some recording playing on a loop, but that wasn't really the case, as each version sounded different from the previous. They really were weird. Or maybe their kid was just eccentric. Maybe they were practicing for some performance. I started thinking. As I said, I hadn't personally met these people before, so I had no idea what they did. Maybe they were really practicing. I put my headphones on and went on, trying to make some sort of dinner, even though I wasn't really hungry and my throat still hurt. I ate, watched my show, then took a shower. Their singing had started to piss me off. It was now approaching 10 p.m., and I felt the need to go upstairs and tell them to quit it. I'm not confrontational. I really don't like telling people they upset me, and most don't have an appropriate reaction at all. I didn't want to talk to them, so I called my mom. I started telling her about my day, but she interrupted me, asking about the people upstairs. Uh, yeah, they've been doing it for hours. I don't know, it's starting to really get on my nerves. Well, go up to them and knock. Aren't the residents annoyed? Other people upstairs, the old people? I'm sure they wanted sleep by now. Maybe I could just put on some music. They could cover them up. But do you want to listen to music? No, not really. Then why do it to please them? Go upstairs, Michaela. I sighed and reluctantly agreed. After hanging up, I put on a sweater and unlocked my front door. The moment I opened it, the air felt a little colder. I stared at the dark hallway, illuminated by the ray of light from my door and another faint light coming from upstairs. I went up the stairs. The second floor was more animated than the first. The door to the family's apartment was slightly open, and I could see light move and movement behind. I slowly approached it, then peeked inside. I could see a hallway with balloons and confetti peacefully floating around. A faint smell of candles and sweetness lingered around. I didn't want to disturb too much, so I tried to be discreet while I quietly and almost imperceptibly pushed the door slightly more. The small hallway made way to a dining room. The shadows were dancing on the walls as people clapped around the table and sang. On the table was a cake with pink and purple frosting, sprinkles, and some writing I couldn't really decipher. The song carried on, but was hoarser than I'd remembered it. People were smiling, swaying from side to side, at the person sitting in front of the cake. The lighting was dim and pleasant, its only source being the candles. The people around were a little tense, but overall it reminded me of my own birthdays as a kid. Some boxes lay scattered on the floor. I tried to take a better look at them, or the kid. The child looked like a young boy with a big birthday hat on. He, I think, could have been 10 or 12, and his face was round and stretched into a big smile. I stared for a while at the teeth. I don't know what prompted me to make that observation, but he had adult teeth, which were rotten and yellow, sticking out of his mouth in abnormal directions. His eyes were wide and red, as if he'd been crying for a while. I don't remember seeing him blink at all. In the moments that I watched that felt like hours, he looked really shaken and tense. I'd never seen a child look like that before, never in my life. All the courage I'd had before peeking through the door had evaporated. I must have zoned out watching the scene when I was pulled away from my trance. The kid shifted his eyes from the candles, which had now almost completely melted, and looked straight at me. I felt seen like I'd never been before. My heart completely collapsed, leaving a painful knot in my chest as I made eye contact with the child. His smile slowly faded, turning into a grimace. I wanted to run, but I was somehow frozen in place. Suddenly he blew out the candles and the room was engulfed in darkness. I heard something shuffle in the darkness towards me, gasped, and shut the door behind me as I practically jumped down the stairs. The shuffling and scratching followed. I gripped the door and slammed it behind me just as something slammed into it from the other side. Eyes wide and unfocused, I barely managed to lock it as the banging started. The song upstairs had stopped. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was completely dark now, but I could make out the details of the face I'd looked at before in the dimly lit dining room. Only now we were at eye level, which was impossible, since that had been a kid. Had it? Or had it just been a person? The more I thought, the more I realized I had no idea what prompted me to assume it had been a kid. The round face, the childish clothing. Trying to decipher the memory meant analyzing every detail of that horrible face, a thing I didn't want to do. The banging turned to scratching. I yelled I was going to call the police. My voice died in my throat. The banging was so strong that it had undoubtedly going to break down my front door. Suddenly I heard a distinct sound upstairs. The banging and scratching instantly stopped. It was a door opening, the elderly couple's door. Hey, what on earth are you doing? It's the middle of the night. I watched through the people as the kid, not a kid, walked away from my door upstairs. Quit it before I call the police. It's enough that I have to hear you kids' tantrums every day, lady, but the voice abruptly stopped. I listened, barely breathing. No scream, no sound, nothing. Faint scratching, then shuffling, then a faint cry that sounded like forced sobs. I silently dialed the police and barely managed to whisper what was going on, afraid that I might be heard. As I was detailing the problem, I looked through the peephole once again to be greeted by that face, grimaced and eyes bloodshot and sunken into the head. You're welcome to join next year. That's why we left the door open, came the voice of an adult, out of the face of a 12-year-old. I gasped and ducked, as if that would save me. The police came in around half an hour, which was an insanely long amount of time. They went upstairs and sealed off the entirety of the second floor. They refused to give me details. I had to wait for the headlines and accept some vague answers from the numerous phone calls I'd given since. Miss, there were never kids living upstairs. Two of them were grown ups, but two of them were pretending to be kids. They refused to tell me what had happened to the elderly couple. They barely mumbled something that included kidnapping, massacre, disembowelment. Some of the victims, which had been many, were hostages made to play along. The presents were just pieces of flesh, toys made of bone with bows on them. One of them was a teeth necklace. I'm going through a really hard time now, trying to move all my stuff without having to go to that place too often. I can't sell it or rent it out. Maybe some true crime fanatic. I moved in with my parents, but I asked them to add extra locks to their doors and windows and security cameras everywhere. They assumed I was paranoid and suffering from PTSD. I let them believe that. However, I'd watched the security footage of that night, showing the outside of my door. The birthday boy I'd spoken to hadn't gone back upstairs. He just crawled to the window and jumped out. I don't know where he is now, and I hope it goes both ways. The end. I could not. I would have been upstairs after the third time of happy birthday. I could not. I fear my patience is not that great.
The faces I made during that were
I
crazy.
know.
I was you're like,
Oh.
it's a child, but it's not a child. I'm like, ugh.
Ugh.
I don't know what's worse.
Why
See,
happy
I would have been
birthday?
the asshole neighbor with the broom, just like banging it on the
Banging
ceiling.
on banging on the ceiling.
Like, I'm not going all the way up there.
I'm not going. I'm just leaving.
Fucking crazy people
Like,
up
Mom,
there.
what do you mean? I gotta go up there and confront them. That's
Nah, that's when you get
crazy.
the broom. Just
It's not my
get the
job.
broom. Ugh. Ugh. I don't know why that. Like, you're just like, yeah, he jumped out the window, like
Oh my
crawled
god.
through the
Well,
window.
I
I was
think it's
like,
there's
ugh.
another one. I'm not sure. There might be a part two.
You will have to look.
Ugh, which is even creepier. But
Ugh.
really good. Again, Helena Castellan, very excellent writer. You guys should definitely go check her out on Reddit, Patreon. Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, did you have another one you would like to read?
I do. I have one more.
Okay.
So this is found on the No Sleep Reddit again. That's my favorite place right now. Written by Pentyworth 22-3. I think you've read his stuff, some of his stuff too, Minx.
Yeah, I don't think I've read it yet, but I do have one. Zeldri, yes. For I do have one selected for the next episode.
Yes, it's very good
Yes,
writer.
yes, yes,
All
yes.
right. So the one I'm going to read is I camped through a snowstorm. Something out there kept practicing my voice. Like I said, go follow them on Reddit. They have quite a bit of stuff. All their stuff will be in the show notes as usual. All right. I camped through a snowstorm. Something out there kept practicing my voice. The forecast said snow showers. That's the exact phrase that got me to throw my pack in the trunk like I was beating the clock on some fun little weekend reset. Snow showers. By the time I reached the pull off, the world was already white in that snow. Slow, steady way that makes you feel like you're inside a shaken snow globe. It wasn't blizzard conditions yet, just thick flakes and wind that kept changing its mind. The kind of weather where you can still hear your own boots in the powder and convince yourself you're fine. I signed the trail register with a pen that didn't want to work. My glove made my handwriting look like a toddler's. There was one other name above mine from earlier that morning. No notes, no back by sunset. Just a name and a time that felt too early to still matter. The first half mile in, I started second guessing myself. Not because I was scared, because every tree looked the same, and snow eat landmarks. Trailblazes disappear when they get frosting on them. Tracks turn to soft dents, and then nothing. Your world shrinks to whatever your headlamp hits, and mine wasn't even on yet. Kept going anyway because that's how I am. If I'm committed to something, I'll drag it behind me like a bad decision on a leash. I picked a spot the way I always do, not too close to the water, not in a low pocket where cold air settles, not under dead branches. A little rise off the trail with a couple of thick trunks to break the wind, nothing dramatic. just a place that looked like it would still be there when I woke up. Setting up in the snow is never graceful. I stamped out a rectangle with my boots until the powder packed down, dug out a shallow trench from my vestibule so I wouldn't be crawling into a drift, anchored my guidelines with buried sticks because the ground was too frozen for stakes. My fingers went numb halfway through, and I told myself it was fine because I had sleeping bag that rated colder than this and a stove with those little hand warmers that smell like pennies when they heat up. It should have been simple. It should have just been cold. While I worked, the woods kept doing that thing where it gets quiet in patches. Not the normal snow muffle sound quiet. I mean the kind where you realize you haven't heard a bird in a while. No squirrel chatter, no little taps from branches. Just wind and the soft hiss of snow landing on my nylon. The first time I noticed it, I actually stopped and listened, like I expected someone to clear their throat behind a tree. Nothing. I finished pitching the tent and went to fetch more deadfall for a small fire. Not to be dramatic, just because fire makes the dark feel a little less personal. That's when I saw the tracks. They weren't mine. Mine were wide, boot shaped, predictable. These were longer, like someone had taken a shovel and dragged it toe first. A single line of impressions, deep enough to show wet under the powder, each one spaced too far apart to be walking normally. I followed them without thinking. 10 steps, 20. They went in a straight line between two stands of pine, and then they stopped at a scorched patch where the wind had polished snow down to a hard pack near exposed stone. No clean turn, no tidy return to trail, just a last drag mark fading into the surface that didn't hold detail the way fresh powder does. I stood there with my gloved hands still gripping a dead branch, staring at the last mark until the storm started filling everything in. The wind picked up and spray of powder hit my face. That's when I heard something behind me. Not footsteps, more like a slow drag, like someone pulling a heavy bag over crusted snow. I whipped around fast enough to almost lose my balance. All I saw was the thinning light behind the trees and my own breath, the start of my boot trail back to the camp. The dragging sound stopped the second I turned. I did the thing you're not supposed to do. I called out. Hello? My voice sounded wrong, like it didn't belong in the woods. No answer. Of course, no answer. I told myself it was a branch, a deer, the wind moving a downed log, anything that fit into the normal world. Then I noticed something I hadn't when I first came. Those long tracks weren't centered the way a person's would be. They weren't two parallel lines like skis either. They were slightly off. Like whatever made them had one side of its body heavier than the other. Like it leaned. I carried the branch back to camp and tried to shake it off. I got my fire going with a little stove fuel and stubbornness. The flame fought the wind but didn't quit. It popped and snapped like it was annoyed. I ate a sad dinner standing up, instant cup noodles in a metal cup, because sitting in the snow makes your body remember exactly what heat is worth. I kept turning my head to check the trees, not because I saw anything, but because my brain kept insisting I should. The storm thickened in layers. It wasn't just snow now, it was snow with teeth. Gusts that shoved it sideways, flakes started stinging my cheeks. Visibility dropping until the firelight felt like a little island and everything outside it was just a wall. I crawled into the tent early, not because I was tired, because being outside started to feel like it was being watched through frosted glass. Inside, everything was close and loud. Nylon breathing, zippers clicking. My sleeping pads squeaked every time I shifted. I stripped off wet layers and stuffed them in a bag so they wouldn't freeze into boards. I checked my phone. No service, obviously. The battery was already draining faster than it should in the cold. I lay there with my headlamp off, listening. Wind, snow, tent fabric snapping, then very faint. The drag again. Not outside the tent, further out, somewhere between the tree line and the trail. Drag, pause, drag. I held my breath like it mattered. The dragging got closer, slow, patient. I sat up and turned my headlamp on. The beam turned the inside of my tent into a bright little fish tank. I stared at the nylon like I could see through it if I stared hard enough. Drag, Pause. And something touched the outside of my tent. Not a gust, not slow sliding, a pressure, deliberate, like a palm placed flat against it. The fabric bowed inward and held. I didn't move. I didn't mean I stayed calm. I meant my body went rigid in a way that felt automatic. The pressure slid just a little, like whatever it was out there was feeling along the seam. It stopped near the zipper. I grabbed my knife. I always carry a small, fixed blade for camp stuff, cutting cord, shaving kindling. Looked stupid in my hand suddenly, like bringing a pocket knife to an argument with the weather. The fabric in the zipper pulled. Not the zipper itself, the fabric around it, like fingers trying to find purchase. I didn't think. I lunged forward and shoved both hands against the door, pushing from the inside, trying to keep whatever it was from getting leverage. For a second, there was resistance. Real resistance. Something solid. Then the pressure vanished. The tent snapped back into place. Silence. I sat there in that awful bright circle of headlamp light, sweating in my base layer, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing happened. That was worse. After a few minutes, I forced myself to breathe normally. I clicked the headlamp to red mode and unzipped the door just enough to look out. Snow blasted and immediately, cold and sharp. I squinted into it. The beam of light got swallowed fast. Just a short cone before it dissolved into white. Couldn't see anything, but I could see the marks. There were fresh imprints right outside my vestibule, partially filled in with snow. Not brute prints, not animal tracks. Those long, leaning drags, ending inches from my door. And mixed in with them, very faint were thinner lines, like something with nails or claws had raked the snow as it was moved. The prints didn't lead away. They circled my tent. Not a clean circle, more like it had paced around, stopping, starting, doubling back, then pressing close again. I zipped the tent shut so hard, the teeth snagged. And that's when I heard it. A sound that made my stomach drop because it was trying badly to be familiar. It was a voice. Not a word, not a sentence, just a low, throaty attempt at the shape of human sound. The way a parrot can mimic a laugh without understanding it. It came from somewhere beyond the trees, past the edge of my light. It went, "Hey." Soft, almost polite. Then silence. Then closer. "Hey." The second one had more breath in it, more confidence. I pressed my mouth into my sleeve to keep my own breathing quiet, like a kid hiding under the covers. "Hey," it tried again, right outside the tent now. So close I could feel it more than I heard it, like nylon was carrying the vibration. The voice was wrong, in a way I can't explain without sounding dramatic. It wasn't scary because it was loud. It was scary because it wasn't quite right. Like something had listened to people speak from far away and decided it could do it too. My headlamp beam shook as my hand shook. The tent wall bulged inward. This time it didn't feel like a palm. This time it felt like a face pressed into it. I saw the shape of the nylon, oval with ridges like bone or cartilage. The fabric stretched across it and held, showing the suggestion of where our eyes would be, where a mouth would be. The mouth moved. "Hold," it said. Then, with a little laugh, it sounded like someone choking. "You cold." I don't know why that broke me, but it did. I kicked the wall where the head was pressed, hard enough to make my heel sting. The shape snapped back. The nylon popped outward. Outside, something made a noise like wet fabric being pulled apart. Then the dragging started again. Faster. Circling. Drag. 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 The whole tent shivered with each pass, like it was brushing against it, bumping it, testing it. I grabbed my car keys, not because I was going to drive, because the alarm button felt like the only weapon I had that wasn't a joke. I crawled into my boots, hand shaking so bad I missed the laces twice. I stuffed my sleeping bag into its sack without rolling it, just crammed it down. Threw what I could into my pack half zipped. I had one thought, clear and bright in my head: get to the car. The storm was thick enough that I couldn't see the trail from my tent. I had to follow my own boot line by feel, like reading Braille with my feet. I unzipped the tent and bolted out. The cold hit me so hard it made my eyes water instantly. Snow slapped my face. Wind shoved my pack like it wanted me on the ground. I took 3 steps and almost fell because the snow had drifted into my boot prints. Behind me, something moved. Not dragging now, running. It hit the side of my tent with a heavy thump, like it had launched itself the second I left. The whole structure collapsed on itself. Poles flexed, snapped back, then folded. My little island of shelter crumpled like a kicked in soda can. That gave me a horrible, vivid image of it being angry that I was leaving. I ran. My headlamp beam bounced wildly, making the woods strobe. Trees appeared and vanished. My own breath sounded like an engine failing. Then something grabbed my pack. It yanked me backwards so hard my spine jolted. I went down on one knee, pack straps biting into my shoulders. My first thought was that it was a branch had hooked it. The pack moved sideways, smooth and strong. I realized whatever it had, it was pulling. I twisted around. My light hit for half a second. It was low to the ground, but long, too long. Its body was pale in a way that didn't look like fur or skin, more like packed snow pressed into the shape of something alive. It had limbs, but they didn't bend right. They hinged too many times. And its head looked like it was wearing a face that didn't fit it. Like it had pressed a mask from frozen skin onto bone. The mouth opened and I saw the dark inside, wet and wrong. It didn't roar. It didn't snarl. It went softly, like it was still practicing. Hey. Then it jerked again, trying to pull me off the trail. I did the only thing that made sense. I let my pack go. The strap slipped off my shoulders, and the thing went with it, tugging into the white like it weighed nothing. I scrambled up and sprinted. Behind me, the dragging returned for a second as it adjusted. Then it came after me with a new sound, a rapid tapping like nails on crusted snow. I could hear it gaining. My foot punched through the thin crust and I went down hard, my shin smacking something buried underneath. Rock or root, I still don't know. Pain flashed hot and then went oddly dull. I tried to get up, my leg didn't want to cooperate. I forced it anyway, half running, half limping, tears freezing at the corners of my eyes. My headlamp beam caught the trail register sign like it was a miracle or effective rectangle in the snow. The pull off was close. I hit the edge of the lot and saw my car as a dark shape under white. I fumbled with my keys so badly I dropped them. I had to find them by feeling the snow, fingers clawing, panic making everything clumsy. I got them, jammed the key into the door, yanked it open, nearly fell into the seat. The tapping sound was right behind me now. I slammed the door. The car rocked. Something hit hard enough to make the whole frame creak. I locked the doors out of instinct, like a lock meant anything against whatever that was. The windshield was already frosting, snow plastered against it. I turned the key and the engine coughed twice. Then nothing. The battery cold soaked. The car had decided to join the storm in being useless. Another impact, this time on the hood. I looked up through the windshield and saw the shape of the glass, inches away, sliding down slowly. Not a face, not fully, just a pale oval pressing against the windshield from the outside, leaving a smear patch where the frost melted underneath it. The mouth moved, muffled against the glass. "You cold," it said. Then it made that coughing laugh again. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely press the panic button, but I did. The car erupted into noise. Horn blaring, lights flashing, ridiculous, desperate alarm in the middle of nowhere. The shape flinched. It peeled off the hood and dropped into the snow with that wrong, jointed motion. The head turned toward the sound like it didn't understand it, like it was hearing a new kind of animal. Then it took a step back, then another. I hit the ignition again and again, begging the engine like it was a person. On the fourth try, it caught. The heater from the fan whined weakly. The headlights cut through the snow into 2 pale tunnels. I threw the car in reverse without thinking about traction, and the tires spun, then grabbed, then slid. I fishtailed, corrected, and then backed onto the road like I was fleeing a burning building. In my rearview mirror, I caught the chaos of white. I caught it standing at the edge of the lot. Not chasing now, just watching. It lifted one arm slowly, like it was waving goodbye. Then it raised its hand to its mouth, pressed his fingers against it, and moved them like it was shaping sound. "Hey," it said one last time, and it sounded closer to normal than it should have. I drove until I hit pavement that looked plowed. I saw lights in the distance. The shaking didn't stop. My skin had swollen under my pants. When I finally dared to pull over someone with a street lamp, I saw blood seeping through the fabric where it slammed into whatever it was that's on that snow crust. The next afternoon, gotten my leg looked at. I went to the ranger station and asked about the other name on the trail register. The woman behind the counter went still for a second, and then told me the register wasn't for public discussion, and that if I wanted information, I could file a report. But she didn't meet my eyes when she said it. At urgent care, they did an x-ray, told me nothing was broken, then rinsed the cut and put in a few stitches anyway because the rock had split me open clean through the skin. I kept replaying the way those drag marks circled my tent, stopping at the zipper like it knew what the seam meant. I kept thinking about the way it practiced one word over and over, like it was trying to get the tone right. And every time I catch myself wanting to write it off as a storm panic, I remember the pressure of something solid through the tent wall and the sound it made when it peeled away, wet and wrong. I haven't slept outside since. The end.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I like when like the Wendigo stories. Those
Yeah.
they're
And
creepy,
that's why we don't go outside.
but also like
There's monsters outside.
the line about like the cars decided to join the storm and being useless was a bar. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm listening and I'm focused and I hear that and I just start dying.
Absolutely useless. That's like
I'm
my
just
car
like,
right
oh
now
my
with the
god.
cold. I feel that living in the Midwest during the
That
winter.
was
I feel that in my
everything.
soul.
This was good though. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, he's a very
I
good writer. I'm
I
definitely looking forward to hearing you read one of his stories.
Oh yeah, the one I decided to read is so good. I can't wait for it, but you're going to have to wait till next episode.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
The next episode, I'm going to be starting one that's actually a series, so it's going to be a two-parter.
Oh yay.
So it's
Okay.
very interesting. But yes, so like I said again, make sure you go follow all of these wonderful people. All of their
Yes.
information will be in the show notes, all their
Yes, yes.
links.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
I'm not sleeping tonight, am I?
No. I'm about to go play Sons of the Forest now for several hours.
All right.
Stress building.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. We're going to try to get the next episode out as soon as possible. We just had some
All
life
right.
stuff going on. So, yeah.
Okay. Bye.
All right. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.